Hello and welcome. This is Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life. And this is the podcast that seeks to inspire you to take control of your mind, take control of your mindset. Think about what you think as a means to go forward and build the life that you want to live. And if you've listened to this show for any amount of time, I think you know that I'm doing my best not to tell you how to live your life. I can really only share my perspectives, and it's up to you, the viewer, up to you, the listener, to decide for yourself if it's of any use to you, if it even makes sense to you. So today, I want to share with you a spiritual idea, but you must know that this is not me pushing my religious ideas and values on you. This is not me pushing my spiritual beliefs upon you. The way I believe reality is constructed, the way I believe God works, is for me. And I'm not forcing you to think that it's right or wrong. I'm not even forcing you to fully understand it, perhaps. But I want you to know that I'm trying to offer something from my own life that you yourself may find useful. So when I talk about God, when I talk about spirituality, it's up to you to decide really what that means. But I hope that you can find in the core of this argument something to make use of. Now, before you turn this off, hear me out. Don't just say, oh, now this guy, he believes in the big sky daddy in the clouds, and write me off as some religious zealot who just chalks everything up to faith and everything up to predetermined conclusions. I still very much believe that we as people must act to build the life that we want. But there is a role, I believe, at least for me, in how spirituality and how God, whatever that means to you, that's the metaphysical, that's that world, that realm that we can't understand, can't explain, can only believe in. There's a role there, even if it's an inspirational and aspirational role. So even if you are a person of faith, I think that your faith may have led you to a similar conclusion. And I think even the most devout atheist could substitute God in this argument, could substitute that which they can't explain, and still find something to work with here. So let me first just give you a short anecdote. And I have spoken about this on the podcast before, but on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, that's a big giant chapel or cathedral, I believe in Rome. Here's how educated I am. Now on this ceiling, it was painted, I believe, by Da Vinci. There's that painting that we're probably all familiar with that depicts God reaching out to man, a single man. Perhaps it's Adam, I'm not sure. Now, in this painting, what I've heard explained to me is that God's finger is reaching fully. God's hand and finger are extended to the maximum. God is reaching out fully to man. You look closely, and man is reaching back, and yet his finger is not fully extended. God is reaching out fully, and man is not reaching out to the same extent. And I was aware of this idea. I even spoke about it on the podcast before, like I said, but I hadn't thought too much about it until lately. And, I pray a lot. I try to talk to God. But I hadn't really thought about what this idea might mean for me in my life. So coming from where I'm at, I look back over my 20s. And I'm 34 now. And there were a lot of behaviors I undertook at that time to self-soothe, right? Behaviors that were a reaction to conscious and unconscious stresses and trauma in my life, right? Things that happened to me where I was in pain or out of control, or perhaps just the stresses of, struggling in school, struggling with relationships. You're a college student, so you don't have a ton of money. Relationships with parents, all these things stress us out, right? Then there was those things that happened when I was young that read as trauma. So there was behaviors I was undertaking, and let's be quite honest, I was using these behaviors to distract, to pleasure myself, right? Distract and pleasure myself. Marijuana, right? I've spoken about that a lot on this show. That went along with isolation, right? Escapism, running from life. Anxiety of using marijuana and being, under the influence in public. It affected the way I treated people. It affected the way people looked at me. Didn't help my mental health. Pornography and the behavior that we all know goes along with pornography. I self-medicated with junk food, with drinking, with overeating. And so now think about this for you. There may be behaviors, whether maybe smoking cigarettes, gambling, promiscuity, right? You're going out and seeking validation from strangers or from somebody new every week or every night. Perhaps it's social media, right? Perhaps there's anger issues, right? There's these things that we indulge in, these things that come out of us, these ways that we behave. They become vices, right? Our quality of life suffers because we undertake these behaviors, but we are undertaking these behaviors, at least in some way, to improve how we feel, to forget about the bad feelings, to try and feel good. And for you, maybe goal setting or building a better life, maybe that is even out of the question, right? Perhaps there's enough stress and enough mental turmoil and enough perhaps trauma that a better life with the steps to get there may be out of the question for you at this point. But I would say that when I look back on my marijuana use, the drinking, the overeating, the pornography, the running away from life, those behaviors, that was time spent standing still. That was time spent not reaching fully towards who I could be. And that who I could be, that potentially greater version of myself, you could look at that as being up there somewhere, reaching out to me, right? This is what I've been thinking about. That who I could be, that better life is there, following this line of thinking. It is reaching out to me at its fullest because if I choose to undertake these behaviors, I can get there, right? God, not God as in the big bearded man in the picture, but the ideal, the perfection, the better is out there. It exists. And so it is reaching out to me if I would only take the steps to act. And so rather than run from life or self-medicate or numb out, confronting life, facing those challenges, exploring, well, what is it that's made me feel the need to run? What is it that's causing me the pain I'm trying to soothe? There is where the growth comes from. And that's where the beginning of the reaching up fully, the walking down the path towards the better life, that's where that begins. So what occurred to me was in my younger years, when I was self-medicating, when I was ignoring the trauma, when I was, let's say, running from life, I was not reaching out fully. I was like the man in the painting, not fully reaching towards what could be. So what I've come to believe is that the life I want, the person I know that I can be, he's out there, he's up there, but he's also in me, and he needs to extend that hand just a little bit further. Because you could call it God, you could call it the universe, the source, the future. Like I say, it's out there. It exists already in the sense that if you would reach, then it would be there. No? The life I want does exist, at least in potential. I have to walk that path. Even though the path may be at first unclear, you got to believe the path is there. So by quitting marijuana, quitting pornography, getting a handle on my eating, and those are all things I've dealt with in previous episodes of this show, feel free to search those keywords on Spotify, on YouTube. You'll find those episodes. And realize that the problems you have are unique to you. I'm not telling you have to quit using marijuana. I'm not here to tell you that you're not eating right. But if there's problems, if there's vices, if there's things that you know that you're doing that are to soothe, to distract, that's an invitation to begin to reach a little further. Understand why you're doing them. See if you can manage those habits a little differently. And so by, in my case, quitting marijuana, quitting the pornography, getting a handle on my eating, I've begun to know myself more clearly. I ask those questions. Why did I do those things? What was I running from? Who was I when that pain happened to me? Who was I? Who could I really be? And it's not just quitting bad habits. It's a full-on pursuit of what the heck is going on inside me. What do I have to offer the world, right? What do I find meaningful? What interests me? So now let me throw it back to you. Can you extend your hand a little bit further? Could you take 10 minutes next week to think about the ways that you could reach a little bit more? I'm not talking reaching out to God through desperation and prayer. I'm talking about reaching into your own spirit to discover what already exists inside you. So take that for what it's worth. Consider it, roll it around. I hope that you found it useful. Let me know. Leave a comment, leave a review. Use the Q&A feature on Spotify. Would love to hear from you. Check out the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And until we speak again, please remember that better is possible.